I look cute today.
Oh, good. You always do.
Thank you.
I love when you say that because it's such an easy softball for me. I could just be like, yeah, handsome. Thanks for finally getting on board. I've known for quite some time.
Unplanned cold open, but here we are.
Okay, hi.
Hi, Julian Pensavalle.
Hey, Patrick Hines.
Fam,
hey, cutie. Hey, hottie.
Hey, good looking. Fam, couple of things. Our next live show on our spring summer live show tour.
Yes.
Saturday, July 22nd, we're coming to DC. After that, August 9th, we're in Seattle. After that, August 4th, I'm in London for my book party.
Right.
My traveling book party. I'm doing it at a little club in Soho, so please come see me.
And then we're going to be in LA.
And then yes, I didn't say all the TCO dates.
I was like, wait a second.
After Seattle, we go to LA, and then we go to New York,
right.
And then we're doing Obsessed Fest.
Okay, amazing.
Okay.
I can barely keep track. I need you to remind me every week because I never know what state we're going to.
Girl, what are we talking about today?
Okay, we are talking about A Murder in Mansfield. It's a documentary, and it's about our friend Collier Landry.
So here's the deal, fam. Collier Landry is a survivor. He is a co-host of a podcast called Survivor Squad, which he makes with Tara Newell. She is responsible for taking down Dirty John Meehan.
And her dog.
She killed him in a parking garage. Like, she's the most badass woman. And they became our friends through the podcast world.
Yeah.
They are coming to Obsessed Fest. They're going to do a live podcast taping. They're going to do a Q&A. They're taking all your questions. Yesterday, we had a meeting. They're like, we want to do anything. They're going to play the games and the Family Feud and all of that stuff. But also, I did an interview with Collier that's live right now in the regular feed. So you can listen to this episode and then go listen to my interview with Collier. We talk about all the other elements of this case that were left out that didn't quite make it into the movie. It's really kind of fascinating. Collier wasn't believed initially that his dad killed his mom. Initially, this was treated as a missing persons case. We talk about all of that, and you can listen to that interview right now. It's live on the regular feed.
One of the things I've always been interested in my life about, ever since you murdered my mother, is the collateral damage of violence. I've always wanted to do something positive with this tragedy. And I came to town to reach out to friends and family that I have never really spoken to about this, and to reconnect with them because my family had been so fractured by this violence. But I think the first step was my quest to heal myself.
All right, so, it's 1990, and we're jumping right in.
Can I go back for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Please.
This is directed by Barbara Koppel.
Yes.
She directed a documentary. You're going to be like, what are you saying? She directed Harlan County, USA.
Oh.
Which is like it's as important as it is super fucking depressing.
What is it?
It's about the coal miner strike in Kentucky in 1973.
Oh my God.
But it's about like workers' rights. But she spent like years making this. It came out in 76, 77. So she's been doing this for a long time.
Collier loves her. He's so proud of this documentary. He's so proud of his work with Barbara. They toured for like a year and a half when this came out.
Yeah.
Like, he loves her. She's amazing. The documentary is incredible.
Yeah. It's very intimate, but also very hands-off.
Yeah.
We'll get into all of it.
All right.
Okay,
well,
sorry.
It's 1990, and we jump right in. There's no coming up on. There's not the usual. I watched like the first 5 minutes being like, when's the coming up on going to be over?
Yeah.
Nope, we're just jumping in.
You know what we also don't start with, which I feel like we've been starting with every time?
What?
A 911 call.
I know.
Wait, we go right to the trial.
Yep.
We're right at the trial.
Yes, and so it's the trial of Dr. John Boyle. He's accused of killing his wife, Noreen, and burying her body in the basement of his new home in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and so this is Collier's mother.
Yes.
And the motive was so that he can move in with his pregnant girlfriend, Sherry. So all of the people outside the courthouse, 1990, get your act together.
It's one of those things where this was like the biggest, hottest ticket in town, this murder trial. There's a lot of people saying things without really hearing themselves in this documentary.
Such as,
the Boyle murder trial is so hot, you'll find a television monitor outside the jam-packed Richland County courtroom. That many people want to see it.
It's actually better than a soap opera because it happened right in our own town. It's just like a movie.
It's like a movie. I'm like, right, but it's not a movie because the real things happen to real people, so it's not a movie.
Somebody says that like the court was so packed that they were taking like closed circuit TVs and putting them out like on the steps.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, court.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you could just say it's open to the public, and when it's full, it's full.
Right.
And like, you don't have to perpetuate the drama of it all.
Because also having it be on TV makes it feel feel like it's a soap opera.
Which,
subconsciously, it must add to that. And when that woman said that, like, it's not a movie.
No.
It's a real thing that happened to real people.
I also, like, one of the things I like that they do in this documentary is they sort of give you this is a story about Collier going back and sort of, like, you know, for the first time ever, like, talking to his friends and family that were affected by the murder in much in the same way that he was.
Yeah.
But they give us the story of what happened to his mother and the trial a little bit at a time, which I think is interesting. And so we're with the jury right now. Like, we're in the courtroom watching the jury watch the video of Collier's mom, Noreen, being sort of exhumed from the grave that the dad put her in.
Right. We also see 12-year-old Collier Landry, who is maybe the best witness I've ever seen testify.
So I can say this because I know Collier. He's a little ham.
Yeah.
He's a little ham on the witness stand. Well, he has no fear. He's so excited to be testifying against his fucking dad.
He's so smart. He's also been prepped very well.
Yes.
He retained everything.
Yes.
Like, he knows when to turn to the jury and speak to them. We'll get back to that.
Yes.
But at first I was like, this is like watching a 40-year-old on the stand. And then I was like, no, because this is better than 40-year-olds I've seen on the stand. He is just so together. And, like, he's there with such purpose as a 12-year-old.
It's interesting. Like, one of the things that Collier has told me that isn't really in the documentary is that, like, people didn't believe him that his dad killed his mother. So that, like, I believe there was like a 30-day window between when his mom was killed and when the body was found. And Collier says that, like, initially people didn't. So he's here, and I think he's feeling vindicated.
Of course.
On the stand. Not only does he get to testify against his piece of shit dad, but like, he was right the whole time.
Right. And you can hear from the jury, like, he's also charming.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but he is, because
why wouldn't you be allowed to call him charming?
I don't know. But, like,
I'll call him good looking. He's also, as a grown man, he's very attractive.
You know, like, he's just, but, like, he, as a little kid, as a 12-year-old, he's disarming too, because they're like.
And just to make you a little familiar with the courtroom, we have the microphones here. You can just speak up and talk right at the microphone.
The jury they laugh almost in spite of themselves because they can't believe this fully formed person who just went through one of the most traumatic things you can go through is so clearly talking about what happened and his experience and testifying against his father who's in the room.
And I don't mean to, like, keep reiterating it or like saying the same thing again, which is what reiterating means.
Sure.
But, like, I think that because he wasn't believed, that he woke up and heard his dad killing his mother.
Yes.
And, like, it was also, I think, portrayed as just, like, she ran away for a while. And, like, he knew the whole time the truth. And now he gets to sit and tell it. And he feels proud and vindicated to get to do so.
Right. He's on the stand talking about his mother, and he explains their relationship, which was, like, really cute and sweet. They were always together. They watch a movie. He was her little shopping buddy. They were together all day, every day.
We get so much of this later. Like, he knows all about, like, ladies' handbags.
Like, the designer labels. Because we learn, like, she enjoyed the finer things in life.
For
and,
sure.
like, their life was a very privileged life where, like, money was no object. And so he knew about, like, Louis Vuitton and this stuff as a 12-year-old boy.
Chanel, I know.
But that was not the case with his father. His dad was never around. And Collier says he was scared of his dad.
He says, like, I spent 1% of the time with my dad, 99% with my mom.
Right.
Like, we're going to find out later, too, that the dad was, like, really physically and verbally and emotionally abusive to him.
To every living creature in that house.
To get to, like, sit there and, like, put the fucking literal nail in the coffin for the dad, like, to get to, like, really speak your truth to him must have been terrifying, I can only imagine. But also, that's why he's got a smile on his face.
Exactly.
You know?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, also just as it's like, I know 40-year-olds who would be terrified to do this.
I mean, like, going to court and facing like your attacker, your abuser, or like the guy who killed your mother, or all of the above, would be absolutely terrifying.
And I'm not saying he's this unicorn and he wasn't scared. I'm not, like, assigning him that. Of course, I'm sure there were nerves there, but he just comes across as this well-prepped, well-read, well-spoken.
Which is also wild because we're going to learn that his entire fucking family abandons him. So, like, where did he get this, like, sense of self? Because his family, like, oh my God.
Like his mother.
Right.
That's where he got it.
Right. So Collier tells us the story of the night of the murder from his point of view.
He awoke
at
3:15. Everyone with a 12-year-old?
I know.
When was the last time they said,
Everyone with a 45-year-old? When was the last time I said that?
I awoke at 3:15.
He says,
as I awoke, I looked at the clock, and it said it was between 3 and 3:15 a.m.
Is there any reason why you woke up rather than just stay there and sleep?
Because I heard a scream coming from my sister. The immediate thought I had was something was wrong with my mother. And about a little while later, maybe about 3 minutes, maybe, I heard a thud.
3 minutes later, he hears a thud, and he like demonstrates.
He recreates it like on the stand.
Yeah.
They ask him, like the prep that they must have gone through with him is flawless.
Then he hears another thud, and he says, I was just absolutely petrified. I was scared to death. And they ask him, like, did you get up and investigate? And he says, no. And they ask him why not. And it's because he was extremely afraid of his father.
And this is when, so he's talking to the prosecutor, his lawyer, and the lawyer's questioning him.
Yeah.
And when the lawyer says, like, why didn't you go to investigate? Collier stops and he turns to the jury and looks directly at them and says, because I was very afraid of my father and I always have been. He knew exactly when to turn and make eye contact with the jury.
Can you imagine, as a juror, how effective that would be?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I'm talking about it a lot, but we have watched a lot of trials and a lot of people testify and a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And this must be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
How do you not hear him in every sense?
It's true.
You know?
And he says, like, he eventually falls asleep, even though he knows something horrible has happened.
Yeah.
He's too afraid to get up and investigate it.
Right.
So he wakes up at 8:30 the next morning. He immediately runs to his mother's room where, like, this image is so vivid.
Yes.
He says he saw that the covers were pulled back like a body had been pulled out. And he's like, that is not the normal way my mom would get out of bed. She's fabulating in her gorgeousness.
She has that one move, like layer. All the birds and the little chipmunks from outside
they fly in with her bathrobe.
Yeah. And like, I believe it because we even hear from so many people around town, like, you saw her and her hair was never out of place. She was always dressed to the nines. Like, she is the kind of person who like doesn't get out of a bed, or she doesn't let her bed be unmade for too long.
Exactly.
You know, even when she gets out, she would like put it back. Like, everything had a place.
Yeah. And he says.
And so I went downstairs and I said, where's my mother? To my father. And he said, well, Mommy took a little vacation, Collier. And then I didn't know what to say. I just panicked. And so I said, and he said, she'll be back in a few days. And then she just left.
You think he's going to believe that? Like, they have such a close, tight relationship. At least come up with, like, a believable fucking story, you idiot.
He's a smart kid.
Totally.
You can't get the vacation line by him. Give me a break.
And so the dad says she'll be back in a few days. You know, he tells us the night of December 30th, the previous night, was the last night he ever saw her.
So now the killer, Collier's father, is on the stand. And he tells his side of the story, which is bullshit.
Like, what a move. Like, I feel like, don't they not usually take the stand because then they get, like, ripped apart on cross? That doesn't happen here.
That doesn't happen
like,
here.
They softball this guy.
Yeah, they do. So his story is that he was sleeping on the couch, like always. Noreen, Collier's mother, comes in, wakes him up, starts screaming at him, is throwing credit cards at him, then is done having her tantrum, turns around, walks out of the house. The killer goes to get his glasses so he could see her better.
Right.
By the time he's back outside, he sees Noreen drive away. So she came in, threw a fit, threw shit at him.
In someone else's car. She gets in a car and drives off.
Also, on top of that, he denies everything. He didn't kill her. He had nothing to do with it. He didn't hire anyone. Like, he's just swearing up and down.
You know who doesn't care? The jury.
Yeah, fuck that. He's found guilty.
They convict his ass.
Right.
We, the jury in this case, find the defendant, John F. Boyle, Jr., guilty of the offense as charged in the indictment.
The judge said he would tolerate no outbursts in the courtroom, but they cheered in the hallway when Dr. John Boyle was found guilty of killing his wife, Noreen.
And they said there was cheering in the hallway.
Right.
So now we jump to 26 years later, and it's Collier, like grown up. It's wild to see him because he's grown up now, and we've just seen him, like the charming, funny little boy on the stand.
And he also looks very different today, 2023 today, than he does when this came out.
Like, he's modeled, he's acted, he's a good-looking guy.
He knows how to find his light.
Exactly.
He can smize.
Totally.
He's good in front of the camera. The camera loves him.
Yes.
He's good to the crew, I'm sure.
Totally.
He's just like good to have around.
But he's on this he's come home to begin the journey of sort of like healing the wound the best he can of the murder of his mother by his father.
Yeah. Now he's on the local radio station with a guy named Rusty Cates.
This guy, I said, Rusty's in a great mood.
Yeah, it's a great name, Rusty Cates, whatever. But the station is WMAN, and I know because it's Mansfield, but it feels like a men's rights station or some shit. It's like, Collier, what are you doing on WMAN? Oh, Mansfield, totally, right. It took me a second, but I was like, WMAN.
Also, Rusty reminds me a little bit of like Jerry from Parks and Rec. He's just like that kind of happy-go-lucky. He goes, of course we all remember you from that horrific murder trial, but what are you up to these days?
Yes, but he's got Chrissy Brinkley waiting at home.
Totally.
Some hot dish.
I mean, the tone is just a little. He wants it to be like a nice, heartwarming interview.
Because Collier, I'm sure, walks in. He's all smiles. We see him walk into a lot of rooms to greet people. And, like, he is disarming because it's very like, no, I know we're here to talk about that thing, but we don't have to talk about that thing the whole time. Like, we can, like, be nice and personable.
How many people have we, like, Obsessed Fest is a good example of, like, Survivor. There's a lot of survivors there.
Sure.
But, like, they're also, like, having a drink and telling a funny story. Like, people contain multitudes, as they say.
Yes, it's true. A lot of nuance here.
Collier says, you know, he's a cinematographer and director living in Los Angeles. And this, obviously, it's his personal story. And ever since the time the murder happened, he says,
what I'm most interested in is the collateral damage and the consequences of violence and secondary trauma, you know, and the impact that these types of things, these violent acts have on, you know, not only on, like, immediate family members and friends, but communities. I mean, look, it's almost 27 years ago, and people are still talking about it.
Let's go to the phone. We have a call. Hi, you're on the air.
I am so glad to hear that Collier's doing
He wants to try to find some good that comes out of these tragedies.
Right. And he's talking about, like, friends, family, communities, like how it just really has a very large ripple effect.
And Rusty goes, okay, great, let's go to the phones.
Yeah. And everyone's calling him to say hi to Collier and wish him well and just remind him the community hasn't forgot about him because LA is a long way from Mansfield.
Right. And, like, it's just a reminder that, like, when this happened in Mansfield in 1990, it was, like, the biggest thing. And, like, this little boy, this charming little boy made a big impact on the town. And, like, he's moved on with his life. And obviously he's never forgotten the murder, but, like, these people have never forgotten him.
Right. And I think he was a major part of that guilty verdict.
For sure.
You know?
For
obviously
sure.
the evidence was there, but, like, he's incredibly compelling. And telling the truth, by the way.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And he says, like, he always wanted to do something positive with this tragedy. So he's back home trying to reach family and friends that he's never really gotten to talk to about this stuff.
And then he goes to the house where he grew up, AKA the scene of the murder.
Yeah. Now, the scene of the murder is not the scene of where the body was dug up.
Yes, that's what I conflated it.
No, you're right. She was murdered in this house.
Right.
And then I think moved the body to the Erie, Pennsylvania house.
Right.
They don't really get into it, but I just wanted to make that point.
Yes.
But he also goes to his, like, the house he grew up in unannounced.
Well, or does he? You know my theory on this. Collier, be honest, let us know. But, you know, he asks the people living there if he can come in, and he's like,
Hi there. I have a question for you. My name is Collier Landry. I grew up in this house. I just wanted to see if we could come in for, like, maybe 5 minutes and just look at, like, my old bedroom and all that. If that's cool? That's cool?
If you don't mind just taking your shoes off.
Well, yes, of course, of course.
Like, white carpet.
They're like, yes, take your shoes off. Now,
Dude, can I just say one thing? Are people like this, they live in a constant state of readiness? Like, the house isn't messy. There's no dishes in the sink.
No,
There's
it's because the documentary called them. They had to sign the release. They had to tell them why. It's not like this is my childhood home and nothing bad ever happened here.
I know.
They need to know. Also, this is why you don't have a white carpet. Because she's obsessed with taking shoes off.
Oh.
But, like, you have to kind of know, like, the history of the house, why Collier's coming. You have to be home.
I mean, because if you didn't know that somebody was killed there, like, that would be an upsetting thing to find out.
Now, what they don't tell us, because eventually they just start talking about it, but, like, who told them and when? And these are great. They're very kind. They're very welcoming people.
Oh, my God. They're, like, huggers. They've got kids.
They're going to, like, be friends with Collier the rest of their... Like, they say later, like, you're welcome anytime. Well, it's very sweet.
Because they're not just inviting Collier in, they're inviting in the entire camera crew. Like, it's one thing to say, like, sure, stranger, you can come, like, look around, but, you're bringing in, like, cameras and light people?
That's why this call happened 2 weeks ago.
Totally. You take all the fun out of it.
It's still compelling. I'm sorry, everybody, but Collier, back me up.
It's true.
And if I'm wrong, great. I love being wrong.
It's like, also, like, he's just, like, walking through the house saying, like, I have such fond memories of my mother here, but also horrendous memories of abuse by my father.
Right.
And he tells the story, like, in the room that was the computer room growing up, he was, like, playing a computer game. Now, look, I've got a 9-year-old who, like, when we let her, is on the iPad as long as she will be. She'll be in the kitchen. We'll be in the living room. It's, like, one big room in my apartment. Like, you have to put headphones on or else, like, we can't hear our show. Young Collier is so mindful of this. He's playing a computer game in another room and he's turning it down and disconnects the speaker so that his dad isn't disturbed watching his movie.
He's walking on eggshells.
Yes.
Every second of the day
and
as
his
a kid.
Fucking piece of shit dad comes into the room and is like, why doesn't the computer work? And before Collier can explain, I took the speakers out so as not to disturb you. The dad's thrown him to the ground. He's like hitting him with the plug, throwing the video games at his face.
Then he started making me call myself a stupid little fat boy, making me run around all over the house. He would say, "What are you?" And I'd say, "A stupid little fat boy." He says, "What are you?" And I said, "A stupid little fat boy." And you say even louder, he says, "What are you?" And I said, "A stupid little fat boy."
And then he would ask Collier, like, what are you? And make Collier say it back to him. Like, that is so fucking cruel.
I don't understand why people like this have kids, unless the point of having kids is to abuse them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think a lot of it stems from, I agree with you completely, but I think a lot of it stems from, like, sorry to get on my soapbox, but like society where it's like you have to get married, you have to have a job, you have to have kids, you have to have a family. And a lot of people go through the motions, but they don't really look inward and decide if they want it or not.
Because this piece of shit killer, like, didn't want a wife because all he does is cheat on her. He didn't want a kid because all he does is abuse him.
Right.
What on earth?
And not saying if you made the choice to not have a family, it's because you knew you would abuse them. I'm just saying, I think those like societal pressures can lead to things like this because like it was just like, he's the man, this is what he does, you know. That's stupid, like heteronormative nonsense.
But then he takes us to his bedroom and he says, like, he remembers waking up that morning at 3:18 and he remembers hearing his father's footsteps, and he has this moment where he's like, I remember thinking, don't look up, don't look up, don't look up, because I don't want my dad to know I'm awake and I'm hearing the murder. And he says, if I let my dad know that I was awake, I don't think I'd be here now. I think my dad would have killed me too.
Yeah.
Can you imagine living with that?
No, I can't. And so I think that's why what he was saying really resonated with people, because he lived this very violent, scary life. And like this sort of comes out in little bits and pieces throughout the documentary, like how much his dad was a ticking time bomb.
Yes.
His whole life.
Yes. God, I mean, like, this is what I talk about. Like, I don't like dads. My dad was never abusive. He never hit us or anything like that. But my dad was like his own kind of monster. And like, that's why I'm afraid of dads. Like, I remember feeling this way about my dad.
Yeah.
Being like all eggshelly around my dad. Like, I didn't see him after I was like 10 or something.
Yeah.
Thank God my mom got us the hell out of there, you know? But like, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. I hate that because dads can be horrible, but they can be great.
I mean, I also am a dad. You know what I mean? Like, I'm also not like
You're
that.
married to a dad.
I'm also
How very
married
dare you? Somewhere Steve's like doing the math. Wait a second. I'm also a dad.
Collier goes into his parents' bedroom.
This was my mother's bedroom where she took her last breath. It's almost like I feel her presence a little bit right now. Not to sound hooey-dooey about things, but...
Not to be all hooey-dooey about it.
Collier?
Be as hooey-dooey
We're
as you want.
We're all friends here. You know I love the hooey-dooey shit.
Thriving in your hooey-dooey-ality.
Let's do that. Totally. Let's Huey-do it. Dooey that.
Huey-dooey in the news and everything.
There's just like so much great energy around his mother. Like he doesn't want it to all be like sad and doom and gloom. Well, it's there, but like she was so lively.
Because like he is also talking to the current homeowners who may or may not have known that somebody was killed in that house.
Like, please, confirmation that they knew 2 weeks ago and they had time to deal with this.
I know.
Instead of being like, oh, is that your kid's room?
Would that I don't know that would really change anything for me.
No, but I'd like to know if the 12-year-old who was on the stand,
right?
Like if they grew up in that town, they might have known that story.
That's true.
So I don't know if they just like came from.
Also, like, where'd you get the name Collier? I'm gonna ask him that for
Collier
the interview.
Landry. It's a great name.
It's such a good name.
It's one of those names where like they only go together.
Yeah. Totally.
It just makes sense.
Collier Hines doesn't work.
But if your name's Collier Hines, it looks great on you.
Totally.
When Noreen was murdered, Collier went into foster care, and he explains how, like, he lost his house, his mother, his father, his dog. Like, his father because his father did this horrible thing. The dog, his family, he's totally alone. And then we learn about Elizabeth.
I mean, this is so wild.
And Elizabeth was Collier's sister. She was newly adopted from Taiwan, and she had just turned 3 when Noreen was murdered.
Yes, and we don't know. I'm going to get this in our interview. I don't know how long Elizabeth had been with the family. They say newly adopted. Yeah. I don't really know what that means.
And she goes by Caitlin now. So
yes. As far as we know,
we
never.
Know.
There are so many people in this documentary I want to yell at.
Like Lynn. Let's talk about Lynn.
Totally.
So the day before Collier's father was arrested, Collier and then Elizabeth were taken by Children's Services and brought to the school principal's house, and her name is Lynn Riggenbach.
To which I said, oh my God, hero, good for her.
No.
Hold tight.
Oh, were you really making assumptions here? How very dare you?
I know.
Because the school principal turns out to be a fucking raging monster because Collier says...
I hope she's a pain in the 5.
Fuck you. I hope she's not. Keep your $5. I don't want your fucking dirt money. Get out of here. Garbage money.
I know. I couldn't agree more.
Keep it away from me.
I know.
The Riggenbachs only really wanted Elizabeth. And so they ended up only adopting her. And I was awarded custody to another family. Then they changed her name from Elizabeth to Caitlin and basically removed her from my life.
It takes her 2 seconds, this garbage principal, to realize, no, their family only wants Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So they adopted Collier's sister, not Collier, separated them. These kids who just went through a traumatic experience. Collier goes to another family, and we will get back to that.
Yes.
These people.
The Riggenbachs.
The Riggenbachs, the fucking garbage idiots.
The garbage Riggenbachs of Mansfield.
Oh, that's a mouthful.
I'm making a musical. The garbage Riggenbachs of Mansfield.
Let's not give them any more attention. Let's make a Collier musical.
Totally.
And then this will be like the dark. Like
it's called Landry.
Oh. But then I'm going to think it's about Friday Night Lights. We'll workshop it.
How do you say his last name?
Landry.
There was a laundry joke, and I'm going to get in trouble for it, but you know what? It was worth it.
Whatever.
It was worth
Who cares? So these people changed Elizabeth's name to Caitlin, totally cut all ties to Collier and her family. And as he says, they basically removed her from her life and like gave her a new identity.
And he says, over the years, I've reached out to her time and time and time again, but to no avail. He hasn't spoken to her in almost 26 years.
And that was back in 2017 when this was made.
What did the Riggenbachs tell her about him?
Oh my God.
Like, why
Maybe
would they,
nothing.
Why would they? But then why wouldn't she call him back? Like, I know she was just a kid, but I want to yell at grown-up Elizabeth.
Or Caitlin or whoever.
Yes.
So Collier, we're back on the stand, and Collier testifies that Elizabeth, Caitlin, always crawled into bed with their mother every single night.
And
she was 3.
Again, they say newly adopted, so we don't know. Maybe she's only lived in this house for a couple months.
Yeah, that we don't know.
And like she's really bonded to the mom, and that's the safe place. But Collier says
she had to have been there when it happened. And my heart was just breaking for her because I believe that she had witnessed the murder. I had got into a conversation with Lieutenant Messmore, the chief investigator, and he was telling me that she said Guga's daddy came in and hit mommy on the head and wrapped her up like a snowman.
This little girl said, my brother's daddy came in and hit my mom on the head and wrapped her up like a snowman.
Well, it's important what she actually said, which is like Gaga's daddy. And we learn later that Gaga is the Chinese word for brother.
Yeah.
And so like Collier is saying there's no way anybody would have known that she called me that.
Right.
So it's proof that she was actually there because she
and that
gave
she said that.
Yes, exactly.
So, Collier's reached out to Caitlin many, many, many times. He never hears back from her.
We see him leaving her a voicemail again now.
Yeah.
And it's fucking hard. Call him back.
And the voicemail is as if he's never spoken to her ever, which he kind of hasn't.
Right.
Because he says like, hey, it's, I don't know if you remember me, but it's Collier. We used to be brother and sister like a really, really long time ago. And I just wonder like how long it's been since he's tried. Like that must be so taxing, like to try and get nothing back from your sister.
And eventually, and I get it. Like she was a kid. She doesn't owe him anything. She doesn't. I'm sure she remembers none of this. And like what? Like I get it. I'm not mad at her, but it is just like this kid loses everybody.
Right. And
Collier
like, what did they do
everybody.
to her?
I know.
To make her see, like, what were they saying to her, or what were they like? Is Collier just like in her world, like some weirdo who like she needs to stay away from, some stalker?
Like adopt them both. Collier wasn't like a bad kid. It's not like he was like a troublemaker. You know what I mean? Like this kid is suffering.
Yeah, like he would put on shows when he had dinner parties. Where's the harm in that?
Exactly.
I'm assuming. So we meet David Messmore, and he's the lead investigator. And Collier really, really bonded with Dave and Susan Messmore.
So, like, they're still alive, and he goes to see them, and I just said, thank fucking God.
I know, that he had somebody.
And, like, he even says, the Riggenbachs, when I was still living with them, were more than happy to let me go spend time with the Messmores because all they cared about was Elizabeth.
And also, that's fucking weird.
That is awful.
Why do they only want the little girl in the house?
I know.
Like, what is happening?
I said, I'm sorry, they sound like fucking monsters.
They're fucking monsters.
And so, he says that when he would go to the Messmores, it was the only time he felt like he could really be himself. And so we're sitting down with Dave and Susan, who are like still with us. Susan looks like $1 million fucking dollars.
Yeah.
My God.
And like they were just reminiscing, and Collier was always with his mother, and she spoke to him like an adult.
Yes.
So like that's how he became the way he was on the stand. But because of that, she would talk to him like they were ladies who were lunching.
I mean, this is so funny.
Because he would ask like borderline inappropriate questions like,
Mrs. Messmore, how many Louis Vuitton purses do you have? And I can remember looking at you going, oh my gosh, this little boy knows about Louis Vuitton. And I can remember you one time asking about our income.
No way.
Yeah.
girl, how many Louis Vuittons do you have?
She's like, do you
how much money do you make? How much did you pay for this house?
Is that Gucci?
Yeah, and they're like laughing about it now. She's like, I will never forget the time you asked me about my Louis Vuitton bags.
I know.
I will never forget
and you
it.
can tell he's kind of a little bit embarrassed about it because he just knew about these things, which I just think is so funny.
Right. And like he also loved being at the Messmores because he got to be a kid. Like they really just let him be who he was. And they really wanted to adopt Collier.
Yes.
But the judge said no because Dave Messmore was the lead investigator on the case, and they said it wouldn't be appropriate for Collier to be adopted by the family.
Can we just let this kid have a fucking home? They also tell this horrifying story that in mid-1990, Collier's dad wanted to take him on a trip to Florida, and Collier immediately called the Messmores and was like, if you let my dad take me to Florida, he's going to kill me.
I'm never coming back.
And that's not like childlike hyperbole.
No.
The Messmores are like, absolutely, you would have gone missing in the Everglades.
Yeah, like that's part of their reminiscing.
Remember that time that your dad tried to kill you?
Like, but that's how openly scary this guy was. Like, he wasn't trying to hide the fact that he was a violent person and he was scary.
I know. And then, like, when the judge won't let him be adopted by the Messmores, he was keeping a diary at the time, and he reads from it now, and his entry ends that he's being placed with a family called the Zieglers.
Yeah.
Thank God they end up being fucking awesome.
They were great.
And they're here, but he's, like, trying to be hopeful in this diary entry, and he's like,
I hope when I live with the Zieglers, it will be a happy home for me. My counselor told me that she believes in happy endings. I don't.
I don't.
Why would he?
12 years old.
Because his father is a monster. His mother has been brutally killed. The family that adopted his sister, doesn't want anything to do with him. And she's the fucking school principal, by the way. Let's have her in charge of a bunch of fucking kids. Totally. I hate this woman. Then the two people who love him and let him express himself and be who he is. Nope. The judge says no.
I can't
So at
believe
this point, it's like he's at a breaking point.
Bend the fucking rule, judge. My God.
Have someone else investigate. Why? Because he's the lead investigator? Can he be like the second lead? I'm sure Dave Messmore would have been like, I'll do anything.
And like the case is wrapped up in like 28 days or something. Like, give the kid a chance.
Who cares? Because even Sue is like, I'm sorry, like I know you, Sue. Susan Messmore is like, we were heartsick, and I believe it. Yeah. So he's placed with the Zieglers, and we meet them. They're here too.
I said they seem a little tough-lovey, but awesome.
Well, they say as much. But Collier, of course, has been through fucking hell and back, so he's super honest about not wanting to live there.
Yep.
But the thing that really struck me about this is that when they were talking about, like, they were really happy that Collier could stay in the community, that he knew everybody there.
That was why they took him in, and they fucking legally adopt him.
But the thing is, I'm like, well, what about the principal who adopted his sister because she's in the community? Wouldn't she just move away and stop being the principal of that school?
Right.
Wasn't she his principal?
So they're still
you.
They're still growing up in the same town, but he's like not allowed to see his sister, is my guess. We'll have to ask him.
And I know that like 3-year-olds aren't really going to grade school and high school. I understand that. But like, did she quit her job? Like she's in this community that the Zieglers were so
a part of
and wanted Collier to stay a part of.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Shut up, Lynn.
But
I hate her.
I know. But Collier seems very happy. We see a video of him on Christmas morning, and he's opening presents, and he just seems great. And, you know, the family, like, the Zieglers tell the story.
It was sort of like Jack and Noreen had a picture-perfect life. Yeah. Here they lived in this cute little house. He was a doctor. She always dressed beautifully. Her hair was never out of place. And when he came to our house, we felt that he wasn't allowed to get dirty. Yeah. And so go out and play, you know, and he didn't know what that was to go out and play and get dirty.
He didn't know what that was.
When he was at the Zieglers, they're like, go out and play and get dirty. And it took him a while, but he eventually warms up. And like, thank God, finally, he's got like some stability.
Yeah.
And these people are still around, and he's like in their house, and he still like loves them and is close with them. And it's like, thank fucking God he landed somewhere safe.
Yes.
Because it could have gone the other way.
Of course.
This kid had everything taken away from him.
Everything. And he even says, like, he calls them like the best kind of silver lining because they were a wonderful family. He was heartbroken about the Messmores, of course, because that was his ideal. But he was like, I was really happy with the Zieglers.
But the Zieglers break my heart again because they say we really tried to have Collier keep the relationship with his family.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like his mother's side of the family, like her sister and brother, who sort of would call every now and then. And like on Christmas, they would come down and have a meal.
They would like Noreen's sister called on holidays for the first couple of years.
Like, I don't get it.
Now, I have to say, this happens all the time. Like, kids go through a tragedy and adults don't know how to deal with it. I've seen it happen. It's happened to people I love that are very close to me, where the stories are, this tragic thing happened when I was 8, and then everyone abandoned me, even the fucking brother of that person or the sister of that person who was lost. So, like, people just don't know how to deal with grief, and they do not know how to deal with kids who are also grieving, and it is so fucked up.
It's just like, once again, like his mother was his whole world, and they would be the only remnants left of that for him, and they just abandon him. And I'm not saying you gotta adopt him, although I would.
Like, although
you know what I
Noreen's
mean?
sister wants
Although
to deal.
you could have, but like to just vanish from his life,
right? To not make sure that he has a connection to his mother and that side of her family. I don't like why. Like, you should all be in this together. The killer's the enemy,
yes,
and now you're all going to make sure that Noreen's memory and energy still stays alive. Like, why don't you want to help her 12-year-old son through that? I don't understand.
And then we see him in a car leaving a voicemail for his aunt and uncle, and I'm like, can someone call him back?
I know. Can
Caitlin,
someone pick up the fucking phone?
Aunt, someone call this fucking guy back. Like, his mother was murdered. He had to testify against his father.
Right.
I'm calling him after we record this session.
Oh my God,
I'm
let's
just gonna
call him. Collier starts writing to his father soon after he gets to prison.
Yeah.
And from the very beginning, Collier is asking for questions. Like, literally saying, like, why did you kill my mom?
And he's like, I still love you, Dad. Like, it's not going to change, but I need you to, like, take responsibility and tell me why.
Yeah. And so, like, we also just get the note that, like, no one really liked his dad. Like, he wasn't well respected. Right. He was a bad guy. He was also a womanizer. And so, like, back to Collier on the stand, he's talking about running in, like, little Collier, kid Collier, runs into Sherry, the new girlfriend,
God.
On Father's Day of all days.
So I was trying to figure out if this was after his mother was murdered or before, but his dad took him tanning. They went to a tanning salon.
Please don't go to a tanning salon.
I know.
If you want to tan, get like body makeup or spray or something.
I mean, it was so 80s, 90s. Like, I had a subscription. Like, I had a card. I could go tanning whenever I wanted to. I know. And we would, like, go tanning. Like, we're going to go shopping. Let's go tanning.
Why?
I know. I mean, I'm looking at you, Snow White, pale as a ghost. I know that, like, this does not appeal to you in any way.
But did you feel like your insides, like, sizzling?
No.
Is that what happens when you go tanning?
But there was definitely, like, a horror movie where, like, the killer, like, locks the person in the tanning
Someone
bed.
gets stuck in it.
And then, like, they turn it all the way up and they basically
Isn't
fry
that
the
and
person.
I Know What You Did Last Summer or something?
Probably.
Or
You know, I Know What You Did Last Summer is not the one where Philippi shows his butt, so I don't care about that one anymore. That was Cruel Intention.
I know, please. Cruel Intentions did a lot of things for a lot of people. So they're out tanning.
They're
like,
out
happy
tanning.
Father's Day, I guess.
You know what I want to do for Father's Day? Go tanning.
Like, I hate this guy. Not Collier. His dad, obviously. The murderer.
Yeah.
They run into Sherry. Now,
I mean,
Collier's on the stand.
Yeah.
Hamming it up.
I mean...
And he's doing an impression of his dad.
He gets the jury to chuckle.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Like, again.
Yeah.
He gets them to laugh. He's, like, doing bits up there.
I'm telling you, he's a ham.
He is. But they run into Sherry, the girlfriend, and Collier does an impression. 12-year-old Collier's on the stand, just to paint a picture.
Yeah.
In front of the jury, doing an impression of his dad, who's, like, faking, pretending, having to, like, oh, Sherry, what are you doing here?
And when we got there, my dad got out and he says, well, look who's here. It's Sherry. And then I just was, like, disgusted.
Well, look who's here! It's Sherry!
And he does the jazz hands.
And the jury laughs, and he whips his head. He was like, I was just disgusted. As he should have been.
Wait, you have to do this before I forget. Steve really wants us to discuss what Collier's wearing on the stand, because it's a
little like sweater set, right?
It's a sweater over a collared shirt, which was like Steve's uniform.
Cute.
And Steve was like, tell Jillian that my sweater was my Les Mis sweatshirt.
A sweatshirt? Yeah. Not a sweater?
Not a sweater.
Steve
I know.
Never changed.
It's so funny too, because this takes place in Ohio, which is where Steve grew up. And later we'll see a scrapbook. It seems like my mom had that exact same scrapbook.
Steve Tipton, this is your life.
This is your life. I know.
Just going down memory lane. Also,
It's true.
didn't everyone's mom have the same photo album? I'm sorry, I'm not taking that away.
Not
from
mine.
You.
My mom didn't really do
a
photo
scrapbook
albums.
is different from a photo album.
Yeah, this is like the one that they had. Like you put like the report card in the pocket of the scrap. Like, wow.
Oh, my parents didn't want to save my report cards. No. We needed to move on and try to do better next time.
Oh, but look at you. You landed on your feet.
As an unmedicated.
I know.
What the fuck is wrong with me, ADHDer? But we got to the bottom of it. But the thing is, during this meeting, I'm sure he was like, hey, we're tanning at 3:45. Let's fake run into each other. Like, what an idiot.
Meet you at the tanning salon?
Like, and Sherry's like,
tanning
okay.
salon. Oh my God.
Sherry, shut up. So, but Sherry.
The Rickenbacks were in at the 3:15.
Lynn?
You hate the Rickenbacks. I mean, I do too.
Like, if you see me, Lynn,
I know.
Cross the street and walk the other way.
She's got flaming purple hair, Lynn. You kind of can't miss her. Get out of her way.
Get away from me.
Get out.
Get away from me. I don't even want to see you. You're a day ruiner. So Sherry at the tanning saloon, the tanning, I was going to say booth.
It's got those the doors from the old timey Western saloon. You have the tanning saloon. You and I should open that. That'd be great.
Only we're not going tanning. You can get spray tan, whatever the safest one is.
Collier, you went tanning?
At 12.
I used to go tanning all the
time.
time.
His dad is just a bad influence all around.
Yeah.
Sherry, the point is, Sherry's wearing a ring. And Collier says, oh, Collier, the shade for days.
Then I turned to Sherry and I looked at her hand and she had a ring on. And I turned to her and I said, Sherry, my mother has a ring like that.
Hey, Sherry, nice ring. My mother used to have one like that.
Uh-huh.
And we don't know the rest of that exchange.
I know.
I'm like, I would take 2 more minutes in this documentary if we heard what Sherry, what her witty retort was.
Totally.
12-year-old Collier who is clocking you from a fucking mile away.
I know. So my favorite thing that happens next, Sherry's on the stand.
Oh, God.
And she does not want to fucking be here. She is essentially, she's like chewing gum.
Yeah.
You know?
But she doesn't want to tell us the truth.
Exactly.
Which is that she gave birth to a baby and that the killer is the father.
So my other question for Collier is going to be like, do you have any contact with that? Like, that's your half-sibling.
It's like the one person he didn't call sitting in the parking lot somewhere.
And it's not that kid's fault. You know what I mean?
Now we meet Shelley Bowden, who's Noreen's best friend and woman who really needs Collier to move over.
Hey, move over, please.
Hey, move over, please.
I know.
No emotion.
She really needs Collier.
And Collier looks at her and he goes, so how are you? He's just like, we're going to go right by that. You just asked me to.
I know.
Are we having an intimate moment? You were my mother's best friend.
I know.
And they're looking through all of Collier's old things and he always wore monograms.
This is another example of people not hearing themselves because she says they're going through the old pictures and there's a picture of him from when he was 6 and she goes, remember when everyone used to tell your mother what a beautiful daughter she had?
And he was like, yes,
Shelley.
I do. Thanks a lot, Shelley. Do you want to talk about why we're doing this documentary too? You want to just pour more salt in this fucking wound?
And she's like, you'd never even get mad about it. Oh my God, poor Collier.
Poor Collier. So also, Shelley drops in that Noreen filed for divorce from Collier's dad. I think that's very important. We never talk about it again.
I know. But, Shelley just tells us that, Noreen was, the best kind of friend and the best kind of mom. But, she also knew that her husband was cheating on her.
And Shelley knew, everyone knew.
He left and she said, it's his girlfriend.
She would say that, long before Sherry and long before 1989.
Sherry wasn't any different than any of the other girlfriends till she got pregnant.
All the girls were the same until Sherry got pregnant, and that's when things changed.
And so Shelley, and remember, Shelley's the best friend.
Yeah.
Sherry is the pregnant girlfriend. But Shelley was telling these stories about how they'd be at some event at Collier's school, and the dad would be like, "Oh, sorry, I have to take this phone call," and he'd go meet a girlfriend.
Yes.
And everyone knew about it.
Yeah.
God.
And then Shelley tells Collier, "We knew there was violence in your house."
Yes.
She describes the time the dad picked up the dog and threw it across the room.
Threw him across the room.
What a fucking piece of shit. And just she knew he was violent, but it progressed to early December of that year. All of a sudden, Noreen is saying he's going to kill me.
Yeah.
And 30 days later, he does.
She was scared of him and she was communicating that to her friends.
Yes.
And so now Noreen was missing for 25 days. And then after 25 days, they found her body buried in the basement under the house.
Yes.
They also just skate right by that.
Yeah. So I think that there's some stuff left out of the story here. And we'll get more from Collier on this in the interview.
Yeah.
Because I think that it was a little bit of a mystery. I think that the police initially did believe that the mom had run away and weren't taking it seriously. But Detective Dave, the one that Collier got really close with, Collier has told me that they got so close because the detective was the only one who believed him.
Right.
And helped solve the case with him. It's not in the documentary, but I believe that that's the story.
Right.
So suddenly, Collier, on his journey back home, is going...
We have some very important business to attend to. Show choir.
We are going back to high school so he can address the show choir.
He's giving a pep talk to the kids in show choir. Don't be late. And there's a video of Collier
back in the day,
back in high school, singing a quote updated for like whatever year that is version of Somewhere Out There.
I mean, it's so cute, Collier, because we also learned that Collier was like popular. He was class president 2 years in a row.
Of course he was.
But was also in show choir. That doesn't usually track.
I love a well-rounded.
I know. Very well-rounded. He's singing Somewhere Out There, and he's singing it like he really means it. Can we hear a little clip of it, Tom? Collier.
Also, like the updated version with like the orchestrations.
When
and
is the album dropping?
Please, tomorrow.
I know.
Can it be a spoken word album about how much we hate Lynn, whatever her last name is, Rickenbach?
Don't get Rickenbach.
Don't do it.
I also love that he was in show choir because he didn't make the basketball team. I feel you.
Basketball schmasketball.
I know. Show choir is the one where like you get like outfits and you do choreography a little bit.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. You like pardon me, boy. Is that the Chattanooga choo-choo? Yes. Track number 9.
Were you
But won't you give me a shine, a shine, a shine? Yeah.
You were in show choir?
I was in show choir, but I couldn't read music and I wasn't really good at the harmony, so I didn't really last.
Pixar didn't happen. Do you have a little blazer?
Yes, with like a top hat.
I would love
Pardon
to see
me,
that.
boy.
It's my official request.
Chattanooga choo-choo. Yes. Track number 9.
So now, like, fun time is over. We have to leave show choir.
Are you ready for a fucking hard left turn?
Yeah, I wasn't, but now I am. Everyone pull over.
We learned that 2 years before the murder, Collier's cousins, these 2 young girls in Baltimore, accused Collier's dad of molesting them.
They went to the police and said that because the killer is also a doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
And under the guise of giving them physicals,
like,
he was abusing them. Like,
Jesus
wasn't the Larry fucking
Christ.
Nasser.
And
Jesus.
also, don't let the uncle give your kid a fucking physical.
I know.
That is ridiculous.
That's also like, again, isn't that a HIPAA violation or something?
Oh my
or
God.
I
missed that. I didn't realize that's what.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Under the guise of it's in the paperwork.
That is insane.
Yeah. So there was an investigation. He was about to be arrested, but the cousins, of course, didn't want to testify because it would be too traumatic, which happens all the time.
But then why do we make the kids do it? Why can't the kids just tell the story to the fucking judge?
So he got away. He got away with it.
I'm sorry. Can we slow down on this for 5 seconds? These fucking child molesters get away with this all the time because the kids don't want to testify because of course they don't.
Yeah.
Why do they have to?
I don't know why they couldn't have told like a trusted doctor, like a social worker, and have them testify.
Like, oh my God.
I don't know.
And so the child molester counts on that and gets away with it.
Yeah.
Like, that is a ridiculous rule that we need to change.
It's another form of abuse.
Exactly.
Like another way that they're abusing these kids.
Oh my God.
So Collier learns about that. He writes another letter calling him out.
Yeah.
He's like, where's my pen and paper? I gotta fucking call this
so
guy out.
Now, not only is he, but his letters to his dad are also still loving. It's like,
I know you're never going to tell me why you killed Mommy. I know you'll never tell me why you cheat on her so much. I don't think our friends and family will ever forgive you completely for killing my mommy, molesting my 2 cousins, lying, and everything else I might have missed. But if you pass on soon, I want you to know that I forgive you. I still love you, Dad. Never forget that.
Also, I still love you. Also, why did you molest my cousins?
And he goes, you're lying about everything. And, anything else I might have missed. Ooh, burn.
I know.
Anything else I might have
and
missed.
And so this piece of shit dad writes back. He goes, I shall make no further comment upon your mediocre grammar.
Like the fucking narcissist he is.
I am guilty of no crime against your mother. Your poisonous communication is more aptly the product of some nearby cesspool, whatever the fuck that means.
Like, he's just trying to sound like smarter and bigger and better.
Then he tells Collier that myself and my family have disowned you.
So people like this are the worst. Like, for many reasons, mostly the murder part.
Yeah.
But like I told you about
also the molestation,
like and all of that,
yeah.
like for many reasons. But I told you about a meme that I saw recently.
Tell me again.
Where it says narcissists are like, yeah, I hurt you, but now you hate me, so I'm the true victim.
Oh yeah.
And that's what he's doing. Like your poisonous communication is hurting me so much that now I'm disowning you, and that now means that he doesn't have to take any accountability for what he did.
The way that he's acting with Collier just proves the point even further that he fucking did it.
Right, but in his abuser brain, he's making it so like maybe Collier will feel he has to apologize or Collier did something wrong. Like this is abuser 101.
It's
like
just crazy.
It's very transparent what he's doing. And Collier doesn't fall for it. He has like a shield from it because he's been dealing with it his whole life.
Thank God, but it's just like this poor fucking kid loses his mom, his dad goes to jail. Even from jail, his dad's a fucking piece of shit.
Right.
And like again, if you're the killer's family, wouldn't you be reaching out to Collier and being like, this isn't your fault? Like I don't understand, like where is the instinct to protect the child?
No, not a single adult in his life.
I know.
Like in his family.
Except for like these strangers. The strangers rise to the occasion. Except for that fucking Rickenbach.
Fuck you. So Collier, like, he gets this, like, super narcissistic letter, like, poisonous communication, blah, blah, blah. Collier writes him again, and his father writes refused on the envelope and sends it back.
Right.
So Collier's like, fuck that. If you are actually refusing my letters, I'm just going to make you deal with me face to face. So Collier wants to visit his father in prison and read him the letter.
But the letter that got refused was from, like, the 90s.
Yeah.
So it's been 25 years or whatever it is.
Right.
So now we're back to the trial, right? This is January 26, 1990, and the realtor who sold the killer the house in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is where the body was found, is on the stand. This was bone-chilling to me.
Yeah. Real estate agent Michelle Barth testified about how strange it was that Boyle should ask her what was under the basement in that new home.
He says, if I were to break into the basement floor, what will I hit? What is underneath that floor?
And what was your response to that then?
Why?
She goes, why? And she's like, also, it's a beautiful basement.
Exactly.
Just refinished. And he, like, why would you want to do this? And he's like, well, if I wanted to lower the floor.
But, like, how dumb as a killer do you have to be?
Right.
That, like, you're going to ask that question, then, like, 2 weeks later, your wife is going to go missing?
Well, but is that a thing?
What?
You don't lower a floor.
Who knows?
Why would you lower a floor?
I don't know. If you want more basement or whatever, are you allowed to do that? Who
But
knows?
lowering the floor means you're going in. Like, what? So Collier looks at the case file and he learns that, like, on top of all of this stuff.
Hang on a second. Collier looks at the case file.
I know.
Full stop.
We'll get into
Collier, I wanted to, like, hug him in this moment and say, like, sweetie, you don't have to do this.
You don't have to look at these photos.
Like, you really
it's
don't.
the crime scene photos.
It would have been enough to, like have Dave, the detective, go through it with just the camera or whatever. But it is the crime scene photos. It's all
too much.
it is too much.
And that becomes very clear. And I think it's his own curiosity. And if he wanted to do it, like, of course. But it gets, it goes exactly how you would think it would in this heartbreaking way. And finally, the guy is just like, let's just take that file away.
Because what happens is, like, they go through, like, what they found with the search warrant was they found a jackhammer and, like, the dad about indoor-outdoor carpet.
Like a special carpet just days before Noreen was murdered.
Exactly. And then when they go into the house, they find that, like, in the basement where he was going to maybe lower the floor, he's built all this brand new shelving. And basically he built all this shelving on the ground on top of the burial site.
Yeah.
So then Collier has to watch, like, the video and the pictures of the body being exhumed. And then that's when he sees those images and then he sees the autopsy images. He can stand it for about 1 second and he's in tears. And thank God Dave was like, let's just,
you know what?
You know what? Like, it's very, like, even if I didn't know him, it would be impossible to watch because it's like this poor fucking guy. Yeah. And, like, I don't want to make Collier sound like a torture. He's wonderful.
No, he's doing this.
Fun
you know what I
great,
mean? Like,
but, like, he's been through so fucking much.
So much. And, like, this brick wall of a fucking father.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, speaking of, the killer's first parole hearing is in 2010, to which I say parole? He's guilty of murder.
I can't. And again, like.
And not like wrong place, wrong time, or like a premeditated.
He killed her on
brutally
purpose.
Killed his wife and buried her body under the floorboards kind of murder.
Because what we learn is that, like, right around that time was when Collier's dad decided to start communication with him again.
Yeah.
And he's, like, writing him these sweet, sunny letters talking about how proud he is of him, how handsome he is.
Because he wants Collier to vouch for him in front of the parole board, and he does it.
Wanting to be a good son and wanting desperately to move on, I met with the board and supported his release. I went to visit him when I was on that trip, and I was really hoping that he would finally tell me the truth.
I was like, don't you not get paroled if you don't take accountability for the murder? And they address it right away. They're like, suddenly his story changes.
Yes. So Collier, he just wants to openly and honestly communicate with his father about this. He needs closure. He wants answers. Like, this is his goal. So he's like, I'm doing what I can to get that. If getting his attention and trust is me, like, writing some bullshit letter so that I can have the conversation I've been wanting to have for 27 years, like, that's what I'm going to do.
Because the dad is manipulating him the dad wants him to correspond with the parole board. And the dad is going so far as to write Collier examples of what he wants Collier to write to the parole board. And Collier does it.
He does it.
And now, again, it's like what you're saying. He's doing it, A, he says because he wants to be a good son. But B, the only way he's going to get a shot at a real conversation with his dad, where maybe his dad will admit to like the shit that he did, is to also be playing along in this way.
So he's like playing a game. He's playing the game against his father.
Yeah,
basically.
but I also don't believe that it's that cut and dry.
I don't either.
I think that he is doing that to get what he wants, but he also thinks maybe this is because I think that Collier's thought is like, if my dad admits to killing my mom for whatever reason, he says this over and over again. If he's like, because she was spending too much money, or you just fucking hated her, or you're just crazy. If he were to admit that, then Collier could see a path to an actual relationship with his dad, because his dad is being honest with him.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think he's going along with this. You know what I mean? All of the emotion lives within him.
And so here's the story that changed. Now the killer is saying, okay, yes, but it was an accident.
It was, well, yes, I'm responsible for her death. I came in the room, we got into an argument, I pushed her, she hit her head, I blacked out, I came back, she was dead.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
He pushed Noreen. She hit her head.
Yeah.
He left the room. When he came back, she was still on the floor because this head injury had killed her.
Yes.
That's his big story now, right?
But it's also like, that is also not taking responsibility. You know what I mean? That is like, even if that were true, that is still not taking responsibility.
It's like the least amount you can do to tell the parole board, like, here's some remorse. Is this good enough? Is this what remorse is?
Honestly,
does anyone know?
How many times do you think the parole board hears shit like
Every
this?
fucking day.
Every single time.
So now, like, Collier goes to visit his father in prison and, like, try to take control of the situation and not be manipulated.
Yeah.
So, like, they're here. They're here and they're talking to each other.
And it's kind of like, the whole movie's been leading up to this moment, and the dad walks in, and it's like, you know, it's so funny because, like, if this were a movie, it'd be like mood lighting, and it'd be like dark. It's just like this brightly lit, like
fluorescent lighting,
fluorescent commissary room that's just like regular tables and chairs.
Yeah.
And the dad walks in, and it's like, how is he going to act? How does he act? Like, and he stands up, and they hug each other, and they tell each other that they love each other.
Then they literally start talking about the weather.
But like,
what else? I mean,
and Collier, like, as much as he has a plan, he's nervous.
Of course, I mean,
you know,
obviously, but also he does sort of come in pretty hot because they go from like talking about the weather to like, anyway, and then Collier's like, well, I've been waiting a long time to do this. Like, what the fuck? And he just really dives in. Like, this talking about the weather thing doesn't go on for minutes and minutes. Like, it's 30 seconds, and then Collier's like, I came a long way.
Well, because
in a lot of ways.
His big thing is, he's like, Dad, you like cut off communication with me. You sent back this letter. I want to read it to you.
And this is a letter when Collier was 15 years old from 1993.
And I just want to say, the dad is in every exchange like, of course you can, you know you can read it to me. Of course you know that. Of course I'd be happy to hear it. He's so bullshitting. Like, he is looking at this as an opportunity to document how sorry he is.
Like, we don't have all the letters of him saying all the other bullshit. Like, wake up.
Right.
Like, we fucking see you.
So Collier starts reading the letter to him. And the letter essentially just says, like, why did you send this back? Why can't you admit your guilt? You say you didn't do it, but at the time, you're not offering any other realistic alternative as to what happened.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't forgive you if you can't admit it. And he's like, and I'm fucked up about this.
Of course.
I need you to admit this so I can get on with my life. And I love you.
Right.
He's always saying, I love you.
Yeah. And so, you know, the killer tells a little bit more of his bullshit story.
Yeah.
So Noreen comes in screaming at him. She grabs a knife.
Like, what a fucking bullshit lie.
It's such
like,
bullshit.
Oh my God.
He pushes her, then she hits the head on the table, then he runs upstairs to get his stuff because he's going to leave. Like, this is it. Then he comes downstairs. Noreen's still laying there. Then he tries CPR. Then...
Right.
How did she get a plastic bag over her head?
I put the plastic bag over her head. I put it over her head because I was just afraid to look at her, scared to look at her.
Not to suffocate her?
Not to suffocate her, no. Not at all.
Because he was too scared to look at her, not suffocate her.
Right. Now, meanwhile, he's saying he put the plastic bag over her head. Dave, looking at the autopsy photos, is like, this plastic bag is tied around her neck.
Like, fuck you.
Yes.
It's like he forgets that, like, there are things in writing, there are photos, there are files.
You know,
like,
this happens to people in prison. Like, we're going to see it in the Fatal Attraction murder, too.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean? How
see
conveniently people forget.
We're going to see a lot.
But, like, Collier is saying to him, like, A, why did you refuse this letter? And the dad's like, it was a really long time ago. I don't remember. I just know I was going through a really bad time. I was in a really dark place. I'm sorry I caused you so much harm. And I'm saying, it just sounds like a memorized speech. If this were me and Daisy, I'd be sobbing.
Yeah.
I'd be hysterical. I would be all over her, so grateful that she came to see me.
Yeah, it's all bullshit.
It's all just a lie.
Yeah. It just goes on and on. He denies sexually abusing the cousins. He denies everything. He's just trying to manipulate.
Because Collier's whole whole thing here is like, this is your last chance.
Yeah.
This is your last chance to tell me the truth. I am begging you, tell me what happened. And the dad's like, I just told you what happened. And Collier like has the great moment of being like, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
And we as the audience needed to hear it. He needed to say it once and for all. Like, I don't believe you. And the dad's like, I'm sorry you don't believe me, but like, this is just what happened. And then Collier starts saying to him, like, wait a second, her skull was crushed.
Yeah.
I know this. I saw the autopsy
He tells her
photos.
about the hammer. He tells him about the hammer.
Yes.
And
the dad's like, no, her skull wasn't crushed. She hit her head on the table. And Collier's like, it was crushed. I saw the autopsy
They're arguing
report.
about facts at this point. I mean, it's like, it's
because
exhausting.
Collier's just saying, like, I don't, like, you're in jail for the rest of your life anyway. Just tell me the truth.
Just be honest. And he even says, like,
Did you want me as a son? Did you want a child?
Sure.
And his dad, after a long beat, is like,
Sure. I mean,
dude.
And Collier finally is just saying, like, the only reason you want me here is for what I'll say to the parole board.
Right.
And, this just goes on. And I'm not saying it goes on needlessly because we're with him hoping that he's going to get what he wants.
Course.
We've been with him on this journey. He's come back to his hometown. We saw him at the show choir.
Yeah.
Give the kid the closure he deserves.
We've been through so much in these 90 minutes. And there are parts of it, like, we see him in therapy a lot, and it almost feels like, I mean, Collier wanted this all to be out there, but there are several moments where it's like, this feels like I shouldn't be here. I feel like I'm intruding.
I
like,
know.
That's how personal it is.
Well, because like this interaction with the dad ends with Collier just standing up and being like, all right, I gotta go. Like, our time is up. I gotta go.
Right. And then they hug, and then there's like a mental health professional. We just hear like the audio of this. And it's this woman who works at the prison talking to Collier's dad.
And suddenly everyone at the prison is real worried about Collier's dad's mental health.
This made me crazy.
I know.
She's like,
are you gonna be okay?
Yeah, I'll be okay. That's not so much an issue.
It's a hard thing, and it's just something that's gonna have to be worked through. The main thing is not to give up on your relationship with him.
Yeah. Oh, I won't do that. I'll never abandon him.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he'll ever talk to me again.
He will. He will.
One day he'll talk to you again. Like, you gotta just keep focused. And I'm like, he's a murderer.
I know.
Who's lying, who's a narcissistic, sexual abusing, pedophile, murderer piece of shit.
I know.
And the woman's like, buck up, champ. Like, we'll get him next time. And I'm like, is your name Lynn Rickenback by any chance? Like, are
she
you
relocated
related?
to work at the prison? Totally.
Do you happen to know? Are you
totally
related to an asshole named Lynn Rickenback by any chance, who used to be a principal?
Oh my God!
Former principal, full-time monster, Lynn Rickenback, personification of a burnt mouth on pizza.
That is like the perfect definition.
Because it's just like, oh fuck, like you're like,
oh God, damn, I got Rickenbacked.
And that's it. It's over now. And everyone else gets to eat, and you stay hungry. And no matter what you have, it's not the same because you can't taste anything because you couldn't wait.
But the thing is, like, as soon as this is over, Collier is back with his therapist, and they're just talking about moving on and forgiveness and whatever. And the therapist says this thing that I love so much.
Yeah.
He goes,
The irony of forgiveness in this situation doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't. It doesn't. Forgiveness is letting go.
Yeah. It means letting go.
Yeah. There's like a whole theory about how like you don't have to forgive, like you have to forgive and forget to move past something.
Yeah.
And the idea that like, no, you don't have to do that.
When you forgive somebody, you forgive them for you. You don't forgive them for them.
Of course.
And like for Collier, forgive or not, but Collier's got to find a way to move on. And forgiveness was never really on the table, it feels like. And then suddenly at the end of this, it's just like you were describing him as a brick wall, the dad.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he is. Like, he's just unmovable, and it's not real. And the only way to move on is to forgive and let go.
And I think the word forgiveness has a little bit of like a lot of weight to it. And I think what people mean is acceptance.
Yeah.
Like you're just accepting, like, because you're not forgiving him.
Right.
You're not saying it's okay.
Yes.
But you're accepting that like, this guy's a narcissistic asshole.
Yeah.
He's done terrible things. He's been violent to me forever. And the acceptance of like, I'm never going to get the words I want from him. I have to move on.
The psychiatrist says to him, like, you have to deal with the fact that he doesn't love you. And he never did.
Yeah.
And that hit me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. Because Collier talks on and on about like wanting the acceptance and the approval and the appreciation and the respect. And it's never going to happen.
Never.
How about Rickenback? She's got any of that forgiveness coming from you?
No. I don't even think about her. She's not even on my radar.
Bye, Lynn.
Bye.
Oh my God, girl, we did a Murder in Mansfield.
Yeah.
And once again, fam, you can listen to my interview with Collier Landry right now. It's in the regular feed. It's live now. We talk about his dad. We talk about the fact that he wasn't believed right away, that initially this was looked at as a missing persons case. It's a super fascinating interview. I love doing it. And again, it's available right now. So go check it out.
Collier and Tara Newell are coming to Obsessed Fest.
That's right.
We're going to do a whole Q&A about the documentary and about Dirty John, which was it's Tara's story. They're going to do a live podcast taping. They've got a new podcast called Survivor Squad. I was listening to it before it was ever released, and I love it. It's really, really great. It's them interviewing other survivors like Amanda Knox and so many other people.
I have to say, their Patreon, I wake up to like 30 alerts.
I know.
They have so much content too.
Yeah.
They're really doing good work over there.
They're so great. So go check that out. Come see us at Obsessed Fest now that we're talking about it.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of.
October 20th to the 22nd in Dallas, Texas.
That's right.
We have everyone from Wine and Crime to us to Bob Ruff. And Rabia and
Rebecca and Crime Writers On and Kevin and Roberta from Lula Rich.
Yeah, Shayna Landry.
That's right.
From the I Just Killed My Dad is going to do a whole live genealogy thing. She's going to be solving things in real time. The ladies who host the podcast Sinisterhood, they are local Dallas ladies. They are amazing. They're going to be there. They are doing their live taping is going to be about the JFK assassination.
Oh boy.
It's such a great weekend. Meetups, meet and greets, drag queens, drag brunch, drag bingo, the whole deal. Friendship bracelets, we're making 3,000. We're giving them away.
I love drag
Everybody
bingo.
who comes gets a copy of my book for free.
Oh, great.
If you buy a ticket, you get a copy of the book for free.
Incredible.
What are we doing next, girl?
We are doing Tragic Beauty, Anna Nicole Smith. It's the 2020 special.
Oh, shit.
She was murdered.
Was she?
Yeah, there's like this, that story is so tragic because she was on this like really horrible cocktail of all of these like pills that like all the people around her were just keeping her over medicated. So it's like a really, really tragic, pretty illegal stuff that was going on with Anna Nicole Smith, who was like an icon.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my God. All right, well, stay tuned for the trailer for that and our funny and hilarious outtakes.
Yeah.
And we love you.
We love you. We'll see you next week.
Go subscribe to Survivor Squad right now.
Yeah. And it's not worth it. Just take a second before you have a bite.
Yeah.
You don't want to ruin
Don't get
the next few days.
Do not get Rick
please, we love you so much. We don't want that to happen to you.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.
A white female. She's not breathing and she's not responsive. She's actually Anna Nicole Smith.
This morning, tragic beauty.
Anna Nicole Smith died.
Anna Nicole Smith has died.
Anna, one more time.
She might have been one of the most famous faces in the world.
Shooting for guests makes Anna Nicole Smith a star.
Ba, 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 boom. Wow.
She was ridiculed, but there's a whole story the public doesn't know.
People have a perception that she was this dumb blonde. She wasn't.
I'm fine, I'm well, I'm here.
Every single thing I touch has a story to it.
She snagged a very rich man who was near death.
One of the world's richest men.
Anna never gave about money. She loved Mr. Marshall tremendously.
He'd left her nothing. Zero.
People who own actual homes, like houses,
I don't know.
It's all confusing to me.
Yeah.
Like, because the same people who have to figure out if they can lower the floor have to figure out how to like drain the gutters or whatever.
Oh,
they have to deal with like roofs. They gotta like you know what I mean?
Know.
Like they
can't even find the words.
Why would you own a house? I don't understand.
You know what I saw? I saw an empty thought bubble behind your eyes. It's like, where are we going? That's a nice, very safe conversation you can have with my dad. Dad, tell Patrick about the storm drains.
I feel like I could ask your dad anything.
You could. He loves you. But I'm just saying, if you want to ease into it a little more, which I think is you are old friends.
Tell me about the storm drains.
Like, or whatever. What's a storm drain?
If we're ever at a party and you overhear me having that conversation with your dad, I'm just gonna hold my cup out for you to refill.
He's been drugged.
Exactly. A lifetime of going to my mom's house and answering the phone and people thinking I'm my older sister. Oh, hey, Sarah, is your mom home?
Yep.
I know.
Hold on. Don't even correct them.
At some point, you just give up. You're like, yes, she is. Hang on a second.